Good day and welcome to our event today. Thank you all for joining this wonderful event we have on energy storage. I'm Stefan Valt. I work for the Israel Trade Mission. Just to give you a little bit more information on the Israel Trade Mission, what we do is we are based in South Africa in Sandton, and we connect South African companies to Israeli companies. We try to create an environment that's been mutually beneficial to both sides. And yeah, if you're a South African company or an Israeli company that's interested in meeting with the other side, please let us know. Our information is on the shared screen at the moment. Let me just make that bigger. Yes, thank you so much for attending again. And I'm going to give over to Ela. She's from the Israeli Export Institute. She does the same that we do, just on the Israeli side. Ela, over to you. Just check, Ela, I think you're muted.
Yeah, just now, sorry. So hi everyone, my name is Hila Lippman, and I am the head of Clean Tech and Contact Sector in the Israeli Export Institute. And for those of you who are not familiar with us, so we are a non-profit, semi-governmental organization that assist Israeli startups to seek business opportunities all over the world in over 10 different industries, such as energy, of course, agri-tech, cyber, and much more. So I want to thank the South Africa Economic Trade Mission Office for this joint effort creating this event, and for everybody enjoy and have a fruitful activity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ela. I'm going to give over to the head of the Israel Trade Mission to South Africa, Mr. Amit Lev. He's going to give us a little bit more of an introduction of this whole event and what we do in South Africa. Amit.
Thank you, Steph, and thank you for the good work for putting this whole session together. Afternoon, and good noon, guys, everyone. It's great to see we have partners and participants from all over the continent. And I'm glad to see you all here. The Israeli Trade Mission, as Steph said, is the official representative of Israeli companies in the country and in the region. We have 3 trade missions in Africa. One is here, one in Kenya, and one in Ghana. And what we do is basically help to connect Israeli innovation with local partners and companies. Today, we're going to focus about energy. And you know, sometimes when we do events in cyber or agriculture, we need to explain why we do this. But energy, especially in South Africa, it goes without saying, right? It's everyone from the first word that they come to South Africa learning is the load shedding. And it's unfortunately, or fortunately, depends how do you look at that, it's the situation that we live in. So we see a great potential, and we set on the working plan for this year. We knew exactly that storage is something that is so incremental for this country and for the continent, and this is something that will help us to move forward. So I don't want to take too much time. I just want to say thank you for our partners in Export Institute in Israel that help us to recruit the companies. Thank you for Power Africa, Megan and Phoebe, our lovely partners that we do this events with them. Thank you, Joe from the USAID, for moderating this, and obviously thank you for the companies that's with us today. For all the attendees, if you have questions, if you want to engage with the partners, the companies, if you want to be in touch with them to ask questions, there is the Q&A box and the chat. Feel free to ask questions, feel free to engage. And obviously we will do a follow-up after the event. And if there are other companies, people that ask already to meet with the companies will get an intro, and the people that you want to meet with the companies or to talk with them in that discussion after the event, we will be glad to facilitate it. So without further ado, thank you very much, and have an encouraging and insightful discussion.
Thank you so much, Amit. I really appreciate that beautiful introduction. Just for all our attendees today, unfortunately, Powerful Solutions will not be able to join us today in this panel discussion. Last minute, they had another engagement that they had to attend to. However, today we have Ideonics that will be joining us instead of Powerful Solutions. And yes, I think that is about the introduction. Over to you, Joe, from the USAID.
Very good, and welcome. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Joe Hallahan. I'm an energy data specialist, and our Energy Storage Sector Lead with Power Africa. It's a pleasure to join you today. I would ask that each of the panelists, as I ask an opening question, if you could give a brief introduction of yourself, just for the audience at large, and also maybe a brief descriptor of your business model and technologies that you work in, because as Amit and Steph covered, we will be covering energy storage today, but not just electricity storage and batteries, but a wide range of technologies across the spectrum. We'll be looking at the state of play in energy storage across Africa and globally. And then we'll also be taking a look into what the future has in store for energy storage supply chains, new innovations in technology, and also what Israeli companies have to offer in this spectrum. Just to start things off, if you don't mind, I'll ask a general question to all of the panelists, and then we can start off with Tal, if that's all right. Just in general, what would you say you would describe as key factors to delivering successful energy storage projects in terms of planning and execution of new development? Tal, over to you.
Hi, hello everyone. I think the answer to your question is, first of all, very good partnerships on the local side. For us, at least, as an Israeli, a relatively young startup, without a strong local presence in South Africa, it will be very hard for us to reach and to implement these types of projects. So this is for us, at least, what we're looking for. Partners in the energy sector.
Very good, thank you, Tal. And that was Tal from Bren Miller. Next, I could pose the same question to Audie from Gencell, if that's okay.
Yeah, likewise, same with the message with Tal. So it takes two sides of the coin. So both of us need to work together for the benefit locally for our. So this is what we try to do, and to learn more. But the technology for us, it's on the side note. But basically, it's a good gel between Africa's countries and the technologies, not just Israeli technologies, but for everyone.
Very good, thank you, Audie. Next, we have Kevin from Battery Solutions International. Kevin, over to you.
There we go. It froze me there temporarily. Yeah, no, I think once you get the community and everything together, and then it all plays so that once everyone sees what you can offer and how it can benefit everyone, yeah, I think it's just more of how the community plays together.
Very good. Thanks for the insights. And then from Adianex, we have Gilad. Gilad, if I could turn it over to you.
Sure. Hey, guys. Yeah, so I guess a lot of things, but the community is going to affect this truly, as Tal said. And there's a lot of technology issues and a lot of problems that need to be solved, but I'm very positive about it.
Very good. And just for the audience at large, we could keep with you, Gilad. Would you mind just giving a brief overview of Adianex, your business model, and the technologies that you focus in? And then we can work our way back in the same order through the other panels.
Sure. Do you want me to just give a short brief, or you want me to share a presentation about us? Which way you want to do it?
I think we'll stick with the short briefer for now. If you'd like to care to take 1 or 2 minutes, speak about your role briefly, but then also what the area of focus for the company at large.
Sure. So hello, everyone. I'm Gilad from Adianex. I'm the director of marketing of the company. Adianex is a battery technology startup. We're developing the new generation of batteries by focusing on the battery physics. So the issue with this industry is that in order to get full adoption of EVs and 100% renewable energy production, which the world is trying to get in the next decade, I would say, batteries are going to play a key role in this revolution. And we need better batteries in terms of performance, in terms of cost. And a lot of companies are trying to do that. But in the last 30 years, billions of dollars has been spent by focusing on battery chemistries. And we took a different angle, and we're improving batteries by focusing on the battery physics and not chemistry. In fact, our solution is chemistry agnostic. So we're working with almost all the chemistries in the market to prove and perform better than what we have today in the market. Basically, like to explain the solution really shortly, we're replacing the two-dimensional electrode which we have in batteries today, all kind of batteries from lithium to silicon-based, and we even have a solution for solid state. So we're replacing the two-dimensional electrode with a three-dimensional one. That means that from a metal foil, we're moving to a 3D structure, which is like a porous, like a sponge. These structures allow us to get higher surface area and to accommodate more of the electrolyte or the active material, which means higher capacity. We also have lower internal resistance, higher mechanical stability, better heat dissipation, with all of that involved with longer lifetime of the battery, better safety, and faster charging time, and maybe the most important, we can also reduce the cost of the batteries with our unique manufacturing process. So this was like a 1-minute brief about the company and what we're doing.
Thank you for that. Very interesting,
Sure.
Especially taking the physics approach rather than being chemistry agnostic. Very interesting. We'll work our way back in the same order. So Kevin, if I could turn it over to you just for a brief introduction and then a short background on what Battery Solutions International focuses on and the business model. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm Kevin. I am the general manager / chief technical officer, if you want to call it. So what we do is we actually take industrial forklift batteries and we refurbish them. So we actually cut them open, we clean the sedimentation out. We then get to see how the actual lead plate is looking, to see if there's a lot of chalk or the sulfur that's stuck on the plates, which then actually decreases the battery performance. Then from there, we'll attach it to our machines to either desulfate it and then run it through multiple cycles and then hopefully bring it back to above 80% from when it arrived.
Terrific. Thank you very much for that. Audi, if I can turn it over to you for the similar introduction of you and your company.
For me. So for Gensel, we are basically a fuel cell company. So not really on the storage one, but the thing is that like any other technology that are out there, so we're not only should be focusing on the batteries or storage, but for fuel cell, we are basically a complementary solution. So we are helping other elements to make it the whole, much more effective, and of course try to be on the cheaper side, because at the end of the day we try to be available for everybody. So, but the specific fuels that we're working is that we're on alkaline base. So when we mention that alkaline, it's basically a clean energy. How clean? It's 100% clean, meaning to say we are zero carbon. We're producing energy at zero carbon. So basically, we're solving the problem of carbon emission. So that's where we are.
Very good. And hydrogen storage is definitely a growing topic of conversation. So I'm glad to have you on the panel as well. And Tal, if I can turn it over to you for Bren Miller.
Yes, hi, I'm Tal Tatnara, Business Development Director at Bren Miller Energy. We are a thermal energy storage company. We have developed a technology for storing heat at high temperatures in the media of crushed volcanic rocks. Our goal, our mission is to enable the transition of power plants and industrial facilities from fossil fuels to clean energy, to renewable energy. And this is what we've been doing in the past 8 or 9 years. We are about 100 employees here in Israel, and are always looking to expand now.
Thank you for that, and a little bit of a scene setting for the entire audience. Okay, so let's pivot back to some more technical and contextual questions. So as I noted, I'm with Power Africa, so majority of my work is focused on sub-Saharan Africa, but I know that your businesses focus on developing markets and also some more established markets as well. Focusing on the developing markets, what are some of the biggest challenges that projects on each continent face today? Maybe I can start with Audie and then turn it over to anyone who would like to react or respond.
Well, generally, the cost. Everything starts start on the cost. Everything basically starts on the cost. So this is where you can say the initial bottleneck. But for the way we do business, okay, the way we do partnership, this and that, is that we're not really going to be, when I mean in any business, capex deal is always good, but that's not the case for everybody. So for us, we are willing to be on different terms, so long payment terms, this and that, especially if we know it's for the benefit and we have a strong partner in the region. So I'm not only talking with African region, but basically anywhere. So we can partnership with them, long duration, and maybe 5-7 years, that kind of stuff. So we're pretty much flexible with the technology that we have. So provided that the business makes sense for us.
Perfect. And just in the same vein, Kevin, Tal, or Gilad, could I have any of you respond to challenges or just the general context when expanding into developing markets?
Well, for us here in South Africa, it's mostly the cost, because now, especially with the cost of lithium ion, okay, now it is going to start dropping down with India now researching sodium instead of lithium. So we'll see how that plans out. But the problem that we find here is the pure cost of lithium ion. So that people are always looking for cheap alternatives, which is what we're trying to do now. So we're still trying to get into the market with a prototype and then to see how that will take off.
Yeah, on our side, I can say that we're still in development phase. So most of our work is with headquarters and like super leading innovation companies. So most of the headquarters are always, USA or Europe. So we don't usually work with developed countries at the moment. Probably when we'll have a more mature product, we will. But I will tell you then what the challenge is.
Yeah.
Probably cost.
Probably, that seems to be a common thread, but no, we look forward to hearing that update when you get there. So based on that conversation and noting that, we have companies that represent working in developing economies and more established ones, maybe we could take a quick pivot and look at what markets you think are primed for mass deployment of storage technology, storage in general, but also if you'd like to focus on your specific business's technology and area of focus, that'd be great as well. But if we could speak to maybe countries that are primed for that expansion in energy storage, and maybe what is differentiating them as compared to the countries that are maybe lagging a little bit behind and not quite there yet. Tal, if I could turn it over to you.
Yes, so from what I see these days, that the places where there is most need for energy storage are the places where there's high penetration of renewable energy. In places like California and Texas and places across Europe, you see quite high penetration of renewables, which drive a very low cost of electricity during some hours of the day, and these conditions allow a comfortable ground for energy storage, and these are the places that we are focusing today, more on locations where penetration of renewables are high. And we are looking into pilots in several other countries, but I would say that our main efforts these days are there.
Very good. And Kevin, Gilad, Audi, if any of you would like to, just kind of react similar vein, what are the common threads between markets that you see that are primed for energy storage and seeing early success?
Well, the market that hasn't been tested out yet is the mining industry. Because like, if you're going to run your generators 24/7, especially if you're mining for gold, you're going to be creating a lot of CO2 gas or whatnot from your generator, where if you build a megawatt or 2 megawatt shipping container, then they can have it as a portable power or mini substation that's portable. That's the one sector that we are now trying to see if it will be feasible and if it will actually work.
Yeah, and energy intensive customers, captive power, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for that. Gilad, I think had you next.
Yeah. So I agree with everyone. I would just add, like, I think countries that would like to invest a lot of money and resources and kind of be leaders in this sector. I think the best example right now is India, because they have the ability eventually to produce in cheap prices a lot of batteries, and they're planning or already starting to build a lot of battery factories. Batteries is our business, so I know that. So I think in those kind of countries where they see the potential, not only in terms of energy production, but also in terms of exports, I think they want to compete. China is also understanding the potential. China probably will have the biggest solar farms and battery farms to produce energy. So yeah, this is a big opportunity, to my opinion.
And I think you were just starting to touch on, one of the advantages there is proximity to supply chain. And we'll be getting to that a little later on in the discussion. But I did want to give Audi just a chance to respond. I know you have a diverse footprint. Markets that you see, primed for success for deployment today of energy storage?
I would like to add on what Kevin had shared on the mining. So the one I'm seeing a lot of activities is similar to Australia, because Australia itself is a big mining country, and the demand is there. Currently, what they have is they have the batteries on site, but at least some of the mining, but predominantly it's a diesel environment. You have a lot of carbon, but countries nowadays are becoming very, very sensitive on those one, and trying to slash those carbon. So what we're Gensel is doing is that basically we're replacing the diesel part, and we are implementing the fuel cell together with the batteries, because the battery can store more, this and that. So we can supply, or we can help on the storage one, whether day and night. But on top of it is that it's clean, 100% clean. So it adds more flavor, it adds more value, not just in cost, but also in value of living. And we're trying to be on both sides.
Thank you for that, Avi. I think that speaks directly to the complementary nature of energy storage, and that these technologies are not mutually exclusive, but they're complementary, just as you noted. Thank you for that. Yeah. So just kind of moving on beyond the markets where we're seeing success, I believe a few you actually touched on this, at least on the near edges, but we are currently seeing more energy storage technologies than ever before. And many of these technologies are already proven or expected to have long-term success. But what are the key associated infrastructure investments that are needed to see mass deployment of these storage technologies beyond just the batteries themselves, the fuel cells themselves? So I know infrastructure is a huge challenge, whether we are focused on developing markets or just new large-scale infrastructure in markets that are already primed for energy storage. But what do you see as those key investments in associated infrastructure that are necessary? And Tal, I can turn it over to you if that's all right.
Well, for us, as a thermal energy storage company, we are more focused on the industrial sector and on the thermal power plants. This is our main focus today. And for us, we don't need large nationwide electrical infrastructure. We are actually more on the distributed side. So we're looking to places where the energy market is distributed, and not necessarily in places where there's very heavy grid infrastructure. So just as I said before, we're just looking for places with where there's a lot of renewables and not necessarily grid infrastructure.
Very good. No, associated renewables, I mean, the mass deployment we're seeing is happening everywhere, but at the same time, being able to engineer that perfectly with your product has to be a challenge. But glad that we're seeing, an uptick in that. Kevin, or Gilad, from the battery side, and maybe you could speak to the associated infrastructure that you are seeing both necessary and needing more investment.
Yeah, so it's clear, you already mentioned it, that we need to produce a lot of batteries. I mean, today, battery factories can't supply the demand. Car companies are stopping providing vehicles because they don't have enough batteries. All the car companies just building their own battery infrastructures. And I'm saying that because this is even before battery farms for renewable energy, which is going to require like billions of batteries. So I think in terms of our industry, this is the biggest challenge. The world is going to be stuck without batteries, both for vehicles and for renewable energy storage.
That's a key point. Manufacturing is going to be key across the board for all of these technologies. Speaking to batteries, which you were referring to, I know some of the countries that we have spoken of, South Africa, India, the US, where I'm based, are all looking at expanding in that capacity. But again, we'll get back to the related supply chain issues a little later in the talk. Kevin, if you'd like to respond.
I think he got basically everything that I would have said. I don't really have much more to add on to that, unfortunately.
No problem. And Audi, any infrastructure related thoughts, just given that the hydrogen-based fuel cells do have maybe a little bit more similar needs as to what Tal was describing, can be distributed and things of that nature?
For what we are seeing today, talking to different players, different avenues. So I think we can address in two different ways. One is if you have a battery farm, you have obviously large amount of batteries that you need to provide, but it's there, you need to do the storage. So that is pose a lot of investment, definitely. On the other side, we are looking like what Tal is doing is that for Gensel also is we're looking on the distributed side, not on the centralized side. Distributed side, we're taking the technology or we're taking the solution on the last mile. But still, same thing, complementary with smaller battery or smaller number of batteries, but targeting specific application, which in terms, of course, will be more cheaper in investment wise. But again, it's distributed. So we are pinpointing. You are basically eliminating the in between. So that's how we are approaching on both sides. But most of the people that we've been talking to, regardless of the solution, most of them are hybrid solution. We're targeting on the last mile or on this distributed side.
Great, thank you for that. I do want to pivot. I know we've kind of touched on briefly some of the overall benefits of storage in terms of a climate change conversation. So I do want to just pivot to that. So, how can we see the whole spectrum of energy storage technologies be a key part in terms of mitigating greenhouse gas emissions and helping customers tackle their climate action goals? Audi, since you're primed and we're just speaking, let's just turn it right back to you.
So, of course, the solution that we have is we don't have any batteries inside, as I mentioned. They were fuel cells. So basically, we're generating energy as needed. Then from there, we can be flexible. But again, a complementary solution for most cases. But from our side itself, tackling on the clean side, fuel cell is you can say it's the solution because like I said, our technology itself speaks for it. We're zero carbon, zero emission, basically totally clean. So we already have the solution, and that I could say. So again, it's up to the opposite side. Where are we going to place this, utilize this, for the benefit?
And Audi, while I do have you, and don't sell yourself short on the storage side of things, just for the audience at large who's not familiar with your business, what are we talking about in terms of storage of hydrogen with your products, especially in terms of duration? Are we talking minutes, hours? If you could maybe just speak to that briefly.
Okay, so the technology is like, basically we're UPS in the sense that there's no battery. Okay, so meaning with the use of hydrogen or ammonia, because we have two basically solution. So bottom line is both of them, we're using the hydrogen. So that is basically our green fuel, so to speak. Then we're generating the energy regardless of what is your requirement, power load requirement. But on the side that it's a UPS, so meaning to say, it's like any other UPS, we will provide the backup. If we are designed to be a backup, we will provide the backup immediately without interruption, regardless of what is the load. Or we can be a primary power. Primary power means we can basically mini nano power plant, so to speak. But on the distributed side, on the last side, that on using our ammonia technology is that we can provide power continuously, day in, day night, for the whole year nonstop, and basically fuel only once or twice a year. So that, again, it will create flexibility, but bottom line, again, it's clean energy.
Perfect. And thank you for that background and for my own benefit and the audience. Okay, Tal, I'll just pose the same question to you. Storage in general, how can that help customers tackle their climate action goals? And if you'd like to speak to your company's technology specifically, please.
Yeah. So as a thermal energy storage company, we're looking in places, and especially these days, industrial facilities, large manufacturers, where they consume a lot of thermal energy, usually in the form of steam or hot air, which generally for the industry, the thermal energy which is consumed is most likely a bigger chunk than the electrical energy that they consume. And this thermal energy is over 90%, in more than 90% of the cases will be based on fossil fuels, either coal or natural gas, or diesel or any kind of oil, and with the more and more companies setting goals for decarbonization and net zero carbon emissions, our technology allows them to utilize renewable sources like PV, like wind, like biomass, to supply this heat, which without storage is just impossible to do, because you can't, you can't produce only when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing. Most of the production facilities are working 24/7, and they need continuous thermal sources. So our technology helps them in this transition to cleaner fuels. It will take time for this transition. It doesn't usually happen all at once, but it is happening gradually. And this is yes, this is our these are the goals that we're setting these days.
It's terrific. And I know there's so much focus on decarbonizing, the power sector and decarbonizing transportation, but I completely agree that, there need to be companies that focus on decarbonizing the industrial sector as well, while still, allowing for that economic development and what the industrial sector does bring. to developing nations and industrialized economies alike. Kevin, I think I gave you the short end of the stick and didn't let you speak to batteries first the last two times. So why don't you go ahead and take it away? Same question on climate action from your angle.
More from our end, it would be that the rural areas, especially here, it will cost the government too much money to actually put in a power plant and whatnot. So where the battery storage will then be creating either a mini wind farm or a mini substation, that would be beneficial. But yeah, here nothing really ever gets done, unfortunately. The government is just a bit too corrupt here.
Yeah, and hopefully that's something that we see more progress on. Gilad, could I turn it over to you? Just same question in the future of climate action, serving customers to meet their greenhouse gas reduction goals through energy storage.
Sure. So we're a component in the solution that the world is going to offer and offering today. But I guess that in any case, everyone's going to need long-lasting and safe batteries, especially if you're going to put, a few batteries at your home. And of course, when we're talking about battery farms, which is going to be like any accident, any small fire may cause like billions of dollars of destruction. So yeah, we're just the company to complete the other solutions, but of course, a very important one, and yeah, the cost is going to be also a major issue, but it's gonna decrease with scale. So I guess if we're talking about $65 per kilowatt per hour in 3 to 5 years for EVs, so I guess for energy storage it might be even lower. So yeah, prices goes down. It's going to be good for everyone.
Yeah, and I know in the battery markets that we're seeing, maybe not quite as precipitous a drop as we saw with solar, but it's starting to track that way. So that's very on point. Okay, well, this kind of touches on the same vein, but we have spoken about renewable energy. It does play into each of your business models. We're seeing large scale variable renewable energy, which for one creates unprecedented grid dynamics, but also for thermal energy and hydrogen production through electrolysis. This also provides new opportunities. I'd like each of you to just speak briefly about what flexibility storage offers today related to renewable energy that maybe it didn't offer just 2, 3, 4 years ago. I could turn it over to Tal, if you don't mind, as I think this feeds directly into your line of work.
Yeah, so I think in some countries we are experiencing more longer duration of storage, as the first projects were initially were based for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. I think now the market is looking for longer duration, 6, 8, or 10 hours, and I think alternative to lithium-ion technologies, these alternative solutions will have some advantages, as the lithium is not built for these long durations. So as more renewables penetrate the grid, there will be a need for longer duration, and I'm glad that there is these different kinds of energy storage technologies which can answer this need, and we're happy to be one of them.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there, that what's on everyone's mind in terms of energy storage is that long duration, whether that's the power sector or powering industry, like you were speaking to with your business. Whether it's keeping the lights on through the night, or whether it is keeping that, that industrial facility running without stop. So thank you for speaking to that. That's very prescient. Kevin, if I could turn it over to you, just in terms of what flexibilities with regard to renewable energy you see storage offering today that it didn't in just the recent years past.
What we can see now is that the actual total capacity with the new technology, your battery, instead of lasting, well, instead of 100 AH, you're now getting all the way up to, I think the largest one I've seen so far is up to 4,500 AH, which is quite astonishing considering that 2-3 years ago, you wouldn't get that.
No, absolutely. But capacity and as you're both saying, duration is increasing in leaps and bounds. So I'm excited to have this conversation again with you all in 2 years, and we can be astonished all over again, hopefully. Gilad, flexibilities with regard to renewables that you see today that you didn't in energy storage recently.
Yeah, so I think the flexibility is when you look on the whole market. I mean, probably that in 10 years, everyone could join this revolution. And when I say everyone, I mean that buildings where people live in, or buildings where people work at. So everyone's going to be able to use solar panels and store energy in batteries, rural areas, local houses. I'm not even talking about, big solar farms, but everyone could join the game, save some costs for his own house, or let's say a management company of a few buildings, a big real estate company, military. For example, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, has like probably few million square meters of roof, which you can put some solar panels on and use it as solar panels platforms. So I think everyone will do a small step, some will do a big step, and we'll have like 90% renewable energy production in just, we can to reach like, in 15, 20 years, which is going to be really great for everyone.
I know there are a lot of people on the call that are hoping that you're spot on with that time projection, especially with regard to no, truly, and especially with regard to the climate action question that we were just focused on prior to this. Audi, in terms of flexibility through the Gen Cell lens, please. Oh, and Audi, I think we still have you on mute.
All right. Sorry. So what I can share is that it's not only because of their of course, obviously the demand is increases, longer storage, but also what I see driving is also the government itself, the government regulation. Just for instance, I've been talking to the government entities in Australia, that usually their main services like telco, power utilities, usually they have battery storage or good enough storage for maybe a day. But because of this bushfire, this and that, those calamities that they don't have before now is becoming more predominant. So it's mandated now by the government to make this facility, industry or private, any of them, to duplicate that whatever they have in 100%. So if they can do it before with their existing storage with 100%, they have to increase it next year with 100, doubling the capacity. So that's what actually is happening. Though in some cases there are some restrictions because in some cases you don't have the footprint to put the to increase your capacity. Then that's when also our technology comes in as a complement.
That actually is spot on with where we're going with the next question. So Audi, I think you get a break on this next one. So thank you for teeing us up for that. But the benefits of storage can be really clear, but regulations and compensation structures can differ so much market to market. Could you all maybe just speak to best practices and common learning experiences that utilities, industrial players, private customers looking for their own power solutions or energy storage solutions can look to when trying to enter a new market with regard to those regulations and compensation structures? Maybe I'll turn that over to Tal. We can go from there.
For us, at least, well, we need to investigate regulation in each country that we are trying to penetrate. Regulators are quite different from country to country, and this is one of the thresholds, one of the one of the challenges in penetrating to new markets. For us in Israel, after living here and building the company here, we know the regulators, and it's quite easy for us to work, but trying to expand abroad, this is definitely a major challenge. I think in terms of energy storage, regulators all across the world they understand the need for it, and are trying to push it. They're quite positive on it. There are regulators who are still cautious about it. More on the on the safety side. We hear of batteries being set on fire in some places. You're from New York, right? So there were some cases of fire hazards in New York recently. But overall, regulators are very supportive since they understand the need for it, and are on our side. So we are working together with regulators, and we're also being assisted with several grant programs for emission reduction, and many other types of regulative supports.
Thank you for that, Tom. Kevin, not to put you on the spot, but I feel like you might have a good amount to say about this in terms of, what can companies do when expanding into new markets to best deal with, encountering the local regulations, compensation structures, and things of that nature.
What we had to do first, we first had to do the market research to see if we would have a business here that could actually grow. And so technically battery storage or energy storage is now one of the largest growing markets in the world. So for us, that was one of the easy parts. But as you were saying, I think there was also another incident in Australia where the Tesla caught fire and actually couldn't do anything for, I think it was up to 28 hours or something, because the fire was so extreme that if some person went there, they would have got 3rd-degree burns within 10 feet of it. Yeah, I really don't have much more to add to that, unfortunately.
No problem. Gilad or Audi, if either of you would like to respond, feel free. Otherwise, we can take a moment and move on to kind of flip that question on its head. Okay, well, let's do just that. So we were looking at it more from the developer angle, from the customer's angle, but what can a government do to best prepare their power sector, their industrial sector, for incorporating storage into the marketplace? Gilad, if I could maybe just put you on the spot with that.
Sure. So I guess the obvious answer is to encourage them. I mean, even the private sector, they want to make good business, they want to make money, and a lot of the time, regulation and government are the problem, like could be the problem for that. So lowering the risk for investors, lowering the risk for companies. For example, Israeli government can give more areas where you can establish some kind of a solar farm south of Israel, and every country has the parts where you can do it. So I think encouraging the private sector will be the easiest and the best thing to do. I'm not even talking about putting some efforts and investments themselves. That's probably second phase.
Yeah, perfect. Audi, I know your technology is a little bit different, but what can governments do to best prepare their economy, their market for energy storage penetration?
The way I see it, for the government, the best thing for them is to also create some sort of subsidy to help to patronize the market, something like that. But not just in storage solution, but for all elements that can be put up all together. So in this way, even the private, they can help subsidy even together with the private, especially in the region in Africa. So that will be really play a role, because first thing is investment could be big. Okay, that's given. But if the government would really help on that one, then it may be more easier to be on that, to move, to be the first mover should have to be the government. So give whatever they can extend and see from that. But definitely it's going to create a positive outlook for everyone, not just for the local but investor, but also to the vendors, to the technology part, to invest also our technology.
Very good. Thank you for that. And Kevin and Tal, I think everyone on this call will probably have a common outlook on subsidies, but maybe beyond that, would either of you like to respond just to what governments can do to help encourage an uptick in energy storage, whether your specific technologies that you focus on or in general?
Well, here in Israel, they essentially decided to shut down all coal power plants starting from 2024, I think. So this is one way to go, just to stop all fossil fuel generation. So obviously, you can't close all the fossil fuel plants, but you can close them, gradually. I'll give you another example of a different kind of a subsidy that we are seeing these days in Europe. They are looking to electrify industrial heat in places like Amsterdam, in Holland. So what the regulator has done there is that they have subsidized both on the capex side and on the opex side. So they give money for renewable and storage capex, but also they subsidize the opex. They allow factories or industrial players to consume electricity at much lower prices, even sometimes at negative prices. So they will consume less fossil fuel and more renewable energy coming from the grid. So you can do both ways. You can eliminate fossil, you can ban it, or you can subsidize the renewable side. Both ways are good.
Very good. Thanks, Tom. Well, I know we are running short on time. I will encourage the audience, as we will have a little time for Q&A after. Now's the perfect time. Feel free to drop any questions you have for our panelists or for general discussion in the Q&A or the chat function at the bottom. But I will leave you all panelists with two topics, and actually just give a brief closing statement that responds to that, but then just any closing thoughts that you'd also like to convey to the audience. So two challenges that definitely came through. One of the initial things that we were talking about were costs, and I said that we bring it back to supply chain. So overall, financial barriers, supply chain, massive challenges, but challenges that we're all looking to overcome to see this industry succeed. Could you maybe just speak to opportunities, ways to overcome both challenges, and just give brief general closing statements? Audi, I'll turn it over to you to begin, and then we'll work our way through the panels.
In tight spot, man. Why? Okay, so I'm thinking of something, man. Currently, what I can say is that the technology that we have is not really, again, it's not really on the storage part. Again, anything that is complementary, but for us is that what really drives is we're willing to be on, at least on the capital side, we're willing to extend because we have capability sort of. But on the other side, really help if the government can accept our technology, because battery is pretty much acceptable anywhere you go. It's pretty much standard, so pretty much it's there. The only thing is that battery cannot be just a battery alone. They need some, they need some source to. So we're complementing to that solution. So if the government or or any, let's say, any region would be the first mover to accept also as a fuel cell to complement the battery as a storage, then that would be the best thing.
All right. Thank you for those closing statements, Adi. Gilad, I'll turn it over to you. If you wouldn't mind giving brief closing statements. And, you know, given the success we're all going to see, we know it's coming. How do we overcome financial barriers and supply chain issues to get there?
Yeah, so I think the barriers are around collaborations with the big companies and even sometimes with governmental companies. So this is where we can improve chances of companies like ours, and there are like tons of really great ideas and technologies out there. And if the world really wants to accelerate electrification and renewable energy production, governments and even the private sector need to invest more money into this, and more patient as well. I think, and we start to see it now in the last like 2 or 3 years, there are like 50 or 100 or even 200 like VCs that are related to climate change and green aspects of investment. And I think those changes are happening, and it's super positive about it. Yeah, I think those are the keys, and I have to leave, so apologize, and wish everyone fortune.
Thank you, Gilad. Kevin,
bye, guys.
Goodbye. Have a good day. Kevin, I'll turn it over to you. Just any closing thoughts, comments on how we overcome supply chain and the current financial barriers we face.
Well, I suppose it'll just be the investment from the government and the private sector, and then it's obviously just to bring your manufacturing costs down in any way necessary, but also one that can be eco-friendly or eco-sustainable. Whereas for us, we actually don't have waste. Everything that is there is recycled, reused. So maybe, yeah, that's practically it.
Very good. And Tal, if you wouldn't mind closing us out, and we can turn it over to the Q&A.
Yes, for us at least, what we're trying to do is manufacture as much as we can locally, both to source the materials, and in places where we have enough pipeline of projects, we try to manufacture locally. For example, in Brazil, we've signed recently with our partner there to start a local manufacturing facility. And in terms of financing, I think there is a lot of money going into renewable projects. I think regulators should encourage even more, these types of green bonds and ESG money, to push them even harder. So this is my thoughts on it.
Very good. Thank you for that, Tom. I will now just take a moment to go over the questions that we've had. I know a few, thank you, Tal, have been answered already in the chat, but I think the first one is actually directed at Tal. So if you don't mind, Tal, in your experience, how well has the technology in question is solar heat for industrial process, how well has that technology been taken up and adapted? And then a secondary question, considering economies of scale, what do you think is the time frame and scale you estimate for a workable business case?
So solar heat is not quite popular for several reasons. One of them that without storage, you can only have the energy available during solar hours. So as more thermal energy storage will be available, I think this will pick up. Another thing is that PV panels have had a very sharp drop in prices, which essentially can replace these solar collectors and give an alternative and very cheap solution. So this is another thing. What was the second part of the question?
Considering the economies of scale, what do you think the time frame is for a workable business case?
So for us, at least, engineering parts and the engineering part of the project takes quite a long time. It's a matter of months. So for us, projects are roughly between 12 to 18 months to execute from start to end.
Perfect. Thank you for addressing those. We had one more just come in and also directed at Brent Miller at Tal. So this attendee notes that process heat in industry is an enormous portion of national energy usage. How does your solution compare to storage in fluid or water? And if you can speak to that, there's also a secondary question about if your technology or if your applications are compatible with concentrated solar and things of that nature.
So, well, when we're there are many types of thermal energy storage technologies. One of the more mature technologies is molten salt, which you can see a lot of projects which are combined with CSP, with the concentrated solar power. And this is the answer to the second question is yes, we are very compatible with CSP. Our advantage over molten salt and definitely over water is that we can go to very high temperatures, about 750 degrees C, which allows us to store more energy per volume of storage. So water obviously can go up to 100 degrees, molten salt can go up to about 400 degrees, and we can go to 750, which is, as I said, can store a lot of energy per unit of volume, and essentially reduce the cost, because most of the cost is based on volume.
Terrific. Thank you for that talk. I believe that is our last question at the moment. I'll give just one more moment for the audience to throw any in that they have. No, I think that's it. Well, I'd like to thank all of you panelists. It's been my pleasure to moderate, and I will turn it back over to Steph, and he can give some closing remarks.
Yes, thank you, Joe. And thank you to our panelists, Tal, Kevin, Audie, and also Gilad. Really appreciate you availing yourself for this lovely panel discussion we had on storage energy and for taking the time. We also would like to thank Amit Lev, our lovely team at BetLink, and also Ila from the Israeli Export Institute. And then, of course, this whole event wouldn't be made possible if it wasn't for our lovely attendees today. So we'd also like everyone that's in attendance today, everyone that spent the past hour listening to us, elaborating on the current trends and the future in storage energy. And we look forward to hearing from you, not just the companies, but the attendees as well. Joe, thank you for leading this panel discussion with the expertise and with your personal inputs. That is also something we really appreciated in this panel discussion. But ladies and gentlemen, that is all for our proceedings here today. Thank you all and have a great and a lovely day. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.